Hello and welcome back to biology. So we're going to kick off talking about photosynthesis today, and how I like to think of photosynthesis as really we're making life from light and air. To me, photosynthesis is the most important process, or one of the most important reactions we talk about throughout the entire year, and that's because life would not be possible without photosynthesis capturing the energy from the sun and turning it into chemical energy. The rest of this would not be possible. So the purpose of today's video is we're going to talk about just the overall equation and then plant structure of the chloroplast, and just how things get in and out through the leaf. So let's get into it. So this is the equation for photosynthesis right here: carbon dioxide, water, and then we're going to make glucose and oxygen. So as you can tell, we're missing the light here because the lights is our energy output here. But with that being said, though, let's talk about how each of these come into play. So the carbon and the oxygen, these are going to enter the leaf through what we refer to as the stomata. So the stomata are little openings at the bottom of the leaf that regulate gas exchange within the plant. So that's going to regulate how much carbon dioxide gets in and how much oxygen gets out. The other thing, the water is going to be brought up through the roots of the plant and through the central vein, and through a particular part of the central vein through the xylem. So the xylem is going to bring the water up into the leaf where it needs to do photosynthesis. And then the last part, the glucose here, the glucose is going to leave the plant through that same central vein, but through a different part of the central vein, this time through the phloem. All right. So carbon dioxide and oxygen, they get regulated through the stomata. Water gets brought into the plant via the roots and via the xylem, and then glucose leaves the plant through the phloem. In fact, if you ever, and the xylem and phloem are still make up the central vein. In fact, if you sap from a tree is basically just sugar water. It's water going up into the leaves, the sugar part, the glucose part coming down out of the leaf. So just some quick review of the just plant structure. Oh, whoops. So remember that, just a recap of just the plant cell, right? Plant cells have three organelles that we do not have in the animal cells. They have the cell wall, which helps support and protect the plant. They have a large central vacuole, which that's going to act as water storage. So here is where most plants are going to store water to help them with photosynthesis. And then they also have these chloroplasts here. Now, remember, plants also have a mitochondria, right? Plants still have a mitochondria because plants still do photosynthesis, right? If we were to go back and look at the equation, our two products that we get here, glucose and the oxygen. Plants don't care about the oxygen. That's a byproduct of this reaction. The glucose is what they care about, and they make the glucose for themselves, not for us. So they make the glucose so that way that they can use it later in the mitochondria. Now, much like when we talked about cellular respiration and we discussed the parts of the mitochondria, we have to talk about the parts of the chloroplast where photosynthesis takes place in. So let's talk about that. So, oops. Okay, so here's what we got. So a chloroplast, if you were to look inside, it's made up of like these tiny stacks of green pancakes and connected by like bridges here. So each stack is called a thylakoid. So, not each stack, each kind of little disc here is called a thylakoid. And when we stack them, we can get a granule in here. The chloroplast, much like the mitochondria, is also made of a double membrane that has an inner and outer membrane. And then the inside here, it looks hollow. It's actually not. It's actually filled with a fluid. So we call that the stroma. So the stroma is the fluid-filled interior of the chloroplast, right? Most mesophyll cells, so the cells where photosynthesis happens in, will have between 30 and 40 chloroplasts in them. So there you go. And then the thylakoid is where the light reactions will take place, and then the stroma is where the light independent reaction takes place. So there's your introduction to plant structure with photosynthesis. If you have questions, let me know. In the next video, we'll get into photosynthesis and we'll talk about the light reactions, or the light reaction that happens over the photosynthesis process. So have a good one. Bye.